Hello and welcome to the show. It is March 24th, 2024. This is Skeptic Generation. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. I almost got that right. Oh my goodness. Hey everybody, welcome back. You guys missed it. Oh my goodness. I needed to run and grab some water, and right before the show started, like literally a minute ago, tried running in socks and just boom. I'm amazed that I made it in time. But I am so glad y'all are here. Already have a call in the screening room ready to go. I'm excited about that. Let me think. I can't think of any really big announcements, so I'm probably going to be diving into calls pretty soon. But before I do, I would love to take more callers because with only one person on the line, this might be a pretty short show. So let me get this phone number out. It is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or if you love that nice, clear, crisp volume, you can go to tiny.cc /SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc /SKEPGEN. And we would be happy to take your call. It is toll free as always. We take on that cost and we're happy to do so. So if you want to talk about what you believe and why, I would love to. I would love to. And then I also wanted to kind of set up a question just in case. And that question is, what's in your toolbox? What is in your epistemic toolbox? You know, what you believe and why, and what tools are you pulling out to understand the world around you? Because even when you stop believing, it doesn't mean that you've applied that rationality everywhere else in your life. I mean, for me, it feels like after, you know, utilizing skepticism in my life, I've wound up needing to reapply that over and over and over again. You know, so many things kind of came packed in with my own religious indoctrination that I had so many opinions that were just kind of fed to me about what is moral or acceptable when it comes to sex, what is moral or acceptable when it comes to being a dude, right? Or roles in society, or the way government should work, or the way leadership should be. What kind of neighbor, what kind of father or friend. All of those things needed to be dissected because, well, it was all kind of baked in. And so reapplying those tools and understanding and keeping that journey going, I think is really, really important. One thing that frustrates me so much, and for a lot of people who've been in this space for a long time, you probably know exactly where I'm going with this, and that is people taking that kind of fundamentalist thinking that they've developed elsewhere in their lives and applying it in atheist spaces because they only really applied critical thinking to the God question and thought the work was done. And it's not. You know, this false sense of superiority, you know, of people going, oh, well, I got the God question right, so I must have really good tools for thinking about. No, we're really bad at it. Got my Alton Brown mug. It's a good morning. It is a good morning. Okay. Ooh, people are talking about playing Cult of the Lamb. Oh, I restarted playing that the other day. Good game. Anyway, sorry. Looks like my ADHD meds have not fully kicked in. But I'm going to do my best. So one more time before I take Jim, 412-SKEPGEN, that's tiny.cc /SKEPGEN, or if you want to call the phone number, 412-753-7436. We have the lines available, and I would love to talk to you. But first, Jim in Ohio, you are live on SKEPGEN. How's it going, Jim?
Very good. And by the way, welcome back. You were missed.
Ah, thank you. I am just getting your name here in the lower third. Okay. And you, I believe, are looking good. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I know the call screener told you, but I called you about maybe a couple weeks before you went on hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
You were solo that time. I remember that. And I was wondering if I was being a hypocrite.
Okay.
Because I tend to believe that there's life elsewhere in the universe, even though there's no evidence or proof to support it. And I wonder if I was being hypocritical because I expect the same from theists. You know, what's their evidence? What's their evidence?
Sure.
And you were able to answer that. And one thing you referred me to a book by Richard Dawkins. I forget the title, but I'll look it up. Haven't had time to read it. So many books, so little time.
I get that.
And there's a couple of things. People in the comments also added suggestions, which I didn't take at the time. I don't know if I was on to something else or maybe just go back. But when I came back, those suggestions have been dropped. And I just wondered if there's some way I could get them back. And this time I would make a note of them. Or if the people who sent the comments are listening, and maybe they'll repost them.
Got it. So can I repeat that? Because I kind of lost you a little bit. Are you saying that you had a couple of suggestions that were given to you for, kind of places to go with that, and you lost the list?
Yeah.
All right. Atheists,
Yeah,
assemble. If you are in the comments, if you are watching either live or after the show, if you have relevant material, definitely pop that in the comments so that we can share that with each other. You're looking for atheist, skeptic books that revolve around what exactly?
Well, for one
Life
thing,
existing outside of Earth?
Well, one of the things you mentioned was some experiment scientists are doing, and I don't know if anyone to actually create life, probably not. But, like life or natural could be recreated to some extent, like laboratories. Like, I guess maybe they found the basics or something like that.
Got it. So you're looking more for studies about how abiogenesis occurs, right? How life from non-life kind of gets rolling.
Yeah, and I'm not very technical, so something strictly for lay people.
Ooh, that might be a little tougher because I've definitely seen studies. I could not tell you off the top of my head which ones, but we have definitely been able to see that really, really basic. I believe like amino acids, occurring naturally through different processes have been studied. But yeah, no, this is definitely a good place for a call out to the community to get together, because that would be a really interesting topic to talk about anyway. But as far as like whether or not you're a hypocrite, do you want to talk about that, or do you feel comfortable in the way that we addressed that before?
I feel comfortable about that, but there is a second part to the question after I hung up, and sometime when I would think about it.
Sure.
I could see, like I said, I'm an atheist, because I know some people sometimes try and regularly come in and say they're atheist, and then, I'm an atheist. I mean, a theist.
Okay.
But I try to see theist side of things, so I know how to come back. And it occurred to me that a theist could place God in the role of scientist. The scientist is in the laboratory. He's got this experiment, and he can tweak a little. He can add something. He can take away something. To see what happens when we do that. And I could see a theist putting God in that position, like God is the scientist. And with a case where he can tweak the experiment with its miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean,
you have a response to that?
Well, it's definitely an accusation that has been created already, even though we haven't always had the technological capability. The accusation of playing God. And if somebody were to create a synthetic life from non-life, and then start the chain of evolution, that they could, that their creatures could call that creator God. And the idea that, a God could just be the scientist who got the work going in the petri dish that is our universe, is definitely like a concept that I've interacted with.
Like people who think that maybe it was aliens that seeded life on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's why UFOs are coming, because they're checking in on their experiment.
Well, at that point, you start getting into conspiracy theories that I am not equipped to respond to. I definitely know the limitations of my knowledge and understanding. I know that...
Mine too.
Yeah, and when it comes to conspiracies, there have been conspiracies that we know have happened. But making the assumption of conspiracies often relies on a lot of underlying, thought processes people have of, distrust of large organizations, of governments, of this and that, whether rightfully or not rightfully. But with that aside, I can respond to the idea of some creator God just being, that scientist in the lab. And ultimately, we want to apportion our behavior to, our confidence in certain things. If I'm not 100% confident in something, I'm not going to go all in on it. And there are plenty of people who've kind of come up with this unprovable idea of a God, whether it be some scientist in a lab that got things kicked off, or panspermia, some outside extraterrestrial beginning to life on Earth. Don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is I'm not going to burn precious time in my life on it until I've got good reason to, and I'll keep an open mind, but like the Tim Minchin song, not so open that my brain falls out.
Exactly. I always like that quote.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
It pretty much sums things up. I know you have other calls. Do I have time for a couple of quickies? And these are quickies.
Yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll move on to Trent after that.
Okay, well, both of them have to do with previous callers. I think this was last week. Like, I forget his name, but the one whose life was destroyed by people spreading lies about him. He lost his job, lost a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if he consulted lawyers about that, even if not for himself. You mentioned how people who are crappy will be crappy to other people. If they're crappy to you and you leave, they'll just switch it to somebody else. And at least take them a court would put them on notice. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know to what extent getting legal help would be there. But I would say that conversations like that are kind of best in the comments, because often the people who call in will read the comments, just like you read the comments and got those resources for yourself. I think that having them on air would actually not be as beneficial as letting the community weigh in and letting them be a part of that too. So let's hold off on. Go ahead.
I'm not very technical, so I don't know how to send or receive comments. So I'll try to have somebody show me how.
Got it. That would definitely be worth looking into. Yeah. One more thing, and then we'll move on.
I just wanted to tell V hi and glad that they're back.
I will pass.
Hope they're doing well.
They are. They are still asleep. They are sleeping in, and they deserved it. They absolutely deserve it. They have had a tough week this week. But Jim, thank you for sticking around, and thank you for coming back. And it's good talking to you.
Thank you, and welcome back.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
That was nice. Yeah, V's doing well. We actually went on a double date last night, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. Things are doing okay, and I'm really happy about it. So, yay. Okay. With that said, let's move on to our next caller. Excuse me. I do want to put the word out because I do want to have more callers in the queue. If you want to call in, it is 412-753-7436. Or if you want to call online, tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. It is free and it works around the world. So give a call. I'd love to talk to you. In the meantime, though, let's talk to Trent in Missouri. Trent, you are live on Skeptic Generation. Let me get you dialed in here. Hey, let me get your name fixed here. Sorry, producing live has its own little issues. All right, looks like we're good. Trent, what did you want to talk about today?
first of all, I'm really glad to get a chance to talk to you today. I would have loved to have called in a couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago when you had genetically modified Skeptic on. I think this topic would have been great for the stuff that you guys were talking about
Yeah.
on that day. I've wanted to talk about this with other people. Normally I can't call because I go to church on Sundays at this time. This week we don't happen to have it. I am an atheist.
Okay.
Um, but my question has to do with it's really more of a topic. I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
It's the idea of holding on to belief as a mechanism for dealing with struggles in life versus even if intellectually you know that it's not reality. And maybe the word belief isn't the right thing to use there, and that's part of why I wanted to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
So there's two things that kind of brought me to this idea. One is I have multiple children and who have various degrees of anxiety, and I've got one that's autistic, and so I've experienced a lot of interesting different patterns of brain activity.
Sure. Just to have that on the same page with you, I have years of working in special ed. In fact, my mom was a special ed teacher, and I grew up in that classroom. And so, working, very, very closely with kids and young adults with special needs, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, and so, and I know that I myself am very much into things have to absolutely make sense. I need to understand why. I mean, even when I was, I'm a Mormon by upbringing and by current practice. I call myself a Mormon atheist because I actually do actively attend and speak with people as if I believe, and it's not necessarily just to mask. It's because I find that there's value for lots of people in belief, and but I have a couple of my kids that, when dealing with anxiety, one of the mechanisms that we use to help them deal with the anxiety was to treat their brain like a separate person.
Okay, I can dig that.
Okay, and actually have conversations with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like talk to their brain and say, thank you for looking out for me, but I've got this, as a mechanism. So that's one thing that kind of triggered my thinking along these lines. And then the second thing is that a few years ago, there was you're familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love. Are you familiar with that?
I didn't remember the name of the author, but I know that book. Yeah.
Okay, I actually haven't read the book, but I watched a TED Talk that she gave,
Mm-hmm.
where she talked about genius and suggested that it might be beneficial if we were to consider genius as not something that somebody is, but something that people have access to, something outside of ourselves, and as if personifying this genius one is a way to not feel like you have to live up to some pressures that are put on us to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if some of the religious thoughts and some of the beliefs that people have are really that the idea of, because I know that for myself, having the idea of a redeemer, a Christ figure, can be powerful when I'm feeling, not as a way to not take responsibility for my actions, but to basically move on from beating myself up, from that I'm not somehow lost, because I see that happen all the time. People make mistakes and they want, or how we deal with justice. This idea we want some justice. Is it possible that there are certain brain chemistries that need that? We're not all as rationally minded as I have my one daughter who's autistic, very high functioning, as some people say, but in her mind it just has to make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm closer to that, whereas my wife, it's like she just doesn't. It's not that she doesn't need to know all of the details, and so for her the stories are just a shortcut, easy way to deal with things, to not have to work through those issues. And so I know I've kind of rambled and touched on a lot of things here.
You have.
It's a broad subject, and it's one that I'm starting to explore, to try to understand a little bit better. I just heard yesterday about a book called that I want to study. What is it called? Something about the cognitive something of religion.
No worries. So we have a couple of things that we probably should address in sections. That way we can, take something that's so big and break it down a little bit. And so I'm going to make a couple of notes so that I can make sure that I don't forget, because my ADHD butt is going to forget.
That's part of my issue too. Is that that's part of the reason I was all over the place. It's like, oh wait, there's this over here, there's this over here.
No worries. So let me see if I can repeat back a couple of these things, and we'll see where we can go from there. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the first things that I'm remembering here in what you said is benefit of believing something even if it's not true.
Well, or at least acting as if you believe.
Got it. Okay. I'm literally making these notes while we're talking because I know that I'm going to wind up forgetting after I get down one of these trains of thought.
That's okay.
And so the next is what the actual benefits are for things like prayer, or for believing in a redeeming figure, because it feels better when you're feeling lost, right?
Yes.
I have a keyboard that's less clicky that I use just for this show, and I didn't put it in front of me before the show started, so I might grab it in a few minutes.
I like the clickies.
Yeah. Oh, good. I just worry that people who are listeling as a podcast or whatever.
I know. You have to do what's best for the show, but it doesn't bother me. But
I appreciate that. So we have that, and then what was the next piece from there?
Just the how do those pieces? I didn't really say this, but I think that, because honestly I can't remember exactly what I said either.
No worries.
I'll have to go back and listen to the call to see if. But I'm wondering if there's some strategies that we could help people basically move beyond the problems of belief without knowledge. Belief without understanding, I guess, would be better.
Yeah. Oh, those are such good questions. Okay, cool. So first off, when you lose the train of thought like that, to me, what that tells me is you're more interested in actively listening to me than you are in waiting for your turn to talk. And so when we both lose the train of thought because we're so interested in talking to each other, I love that. There's never anything to apologize for on that. So you're super good.
Oh, I had never thought of it that way.
Right?
That's impressive. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. So believing in something, even and acting as if it's true, even if it's not. Personally, I'm just some asshole on the internet. I can only speak for myself, but I've found this to be true for a lot of people when I speak to them about it. And that is, there's a difference between knowing something in your head and knowing it in your heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
when I came to a cognitive place of understanding that there's no way that the God I believed in existed, that doesn't mean that my heart was immediately able to understand that. And so the idea of praying, I had spent my entire life feeling like I was communing with this deity every time I prayed. And my brain had built these neural pathways that just emphasized it. They'd become highways that were easy to traverse. And so building new pathways was very difficult. And actually understanding that took a really long time. And during that time, I felt very, very wrong. There was something wrong, you know? At the time, I thought that my God antenna was broken and I just could not communicate with them. You know, something was off. But what I found eventually was there came a point in time that prayer started losing its feeling of usefulness. Not because I was, you know, cognitively going, oh, well, I know this isn't true, but just because it stopped helping. You know, and I, at that point, I felt like that reality had gone from my head to my heart, that I actually fully understood in my heart that wasn't, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, because I've only been able to articulate that I've only been able to basically claim that I'm an atheist for just probably about a year.
Oh man,
But,
yeah, you've got so much ahead of you. Yeah, no, that is an early place to be. God, I didn't.
well, except the thing about it is, this is what I've come to realize is that my journey is much longer than that. Out of literal belief to more nuanced,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm wondering if it was just that switch in my, so I'm actually going to be, I've started thinking about something called, it's changing the narrative.
Okay.
You know that, because you were talking about these neural pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder if the neural pathways that you talked about that had God, that you're still using those, but you've just relabeled them.
Absolutely.
So that it's and that's kind of what I think I've done, and why to me, because me too, this has not been a painful process at all. I mean, I don't have I mean, I know that it is for many, and I don't want to dismiss that, but to me, it's just been a very natural process. But it's been more about just recognizing that those conversations that I used to think I was having with God, because I never really did formal prayer, knelt down and pray. I just always felt like I had a prayer in my heart. I was just always having conversations with God. And so what I've been able to do in the meantime is realize that, I was just having conversations with myself.
That was the other thing you were talking about, externalizing.
Right, working through things, and so maybe kind of what I'm wondering is as you were speaking about your experience of the head of the heart, because I totally get that. And there's still plenty of things that I know that I need to behave differently and need to do differently, because it's intellectually I know that, but I just can't quite.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Get over that hump. I suspect that's probably going to be a challenge for most of us all of our lives. That's the challenge of becoming our ideal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, I mean, I love the discussion a couple of weeks ago with all of the pagan, the atheist.
Oh, Atheopagans. Yeah,
Atheopagan
episode.
Yes, I actually really love that, because it was really like, oh yeah, because that's I still, I mean, I know that a lot of people make fun of Mormonism, and you know, and I would never, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because I knew I could have a conversation with you about this without feeling like I had to defend anything.
Yeah.
But you know, to me, I've always liked I really, and I still do, I like the idea of the Mormon God, one who's a progressed human.
I have had a lot of Mormon friends in my life. What blows my mind is that you're still active in the church and they still let you be. Because in my experience of talking to Mormons, ex-Mormons, and all of that, voicing doubt and having those kinds of, questions have led people to be kicked out of their communities. So the fact that you haven't been kicked out of your community, I'm glad to hear.
Oh, I just don't let them.
Oh. Okay. You know what? So there's not a wrong way or a right way to be an atheist. You do.
No,
Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, I'm not. I don't. But see, that's what helped me realize that I could actually. I've been doing this for years as as an active Mormon, and realized, I actually am an atheist. I don't actually believe this, but I'm, but there are. I mean, I actually love the scriptures. I think there's so many things that we can learn from them. Do I think that they're literal? And no, but that's what kind of brings me to these ideas of the power of mythology in our lives.
Absolutely. I've known plenty of people who've taken books of poetry and just read into them, found themselves reading into them things that were beneficial for their own lives. In fact, there are, quite a few atheist witches who have really described tarot as doing exactly that, right? Laying out the cards, finding what they mean for you, and then using that as a way to kind of hack into your own brain to figure out, where you're thinking about things and where you want to go with things. Doing that, I think, is really, really useful. In fact, externalizing things so that you can address them is a really, really great tool to be able to prevent it from getting power in your life. I know I've talked about it before, but I have clinical depression. My depression is a hitchhiker that I'm not able to kick off the train. Whether it's a good day or a bad day, best day of my life, it doesn't matter. It's just there. And being able to treat it as an external thing and go, hey, I know you're here, but you don't get to be the loudest person in the room. I'm going to put you here to the best of my ability. And then recognizing that on days when that fight is too hard, when that depression is hitting really hard, for me to go, this is my depression. I'm recognizing, okay, it's throwing a tantrum today, but that doesn't make me worse of a person. It doesn't mean that I need all of my tomorrows to be owned by it. And that is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of strategies that I help I've helped my kids with.
What a good dad. I like you, Trent.
When I finally understood that they were behaving the way they were because they were having anxiety attacks, not because they were just throwing tantrums, I feel bad that it took me a while to understand that. But once I did, I was able to help them cope with it, and by using that kind of a strategy, and that's basically what Elizabeth Gilbert suggested. I mean, to me, that's what she's suggesting when she talks about personifying genius as something outside of ourselves. And she gives some. I mean, it's a great TED Talk if you haven't ever listened to it.
It sounds really familiar. It's interesting. I'm definitely all for that. I think that when it comes to the belief and acting in the community itself, have you ever had a friend that was a real dick to other people but was great to you?
Yeah, I think I.
I
definitely have some that are. I don't know if I call them a real dick, but I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I've definitely had friends who, when I was, before I left the Christian space, there were lots of guys who were just misogynist, were just really fun to hang out with, but treated women like crap.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah. And at a certain point, I realized that I could not separate that, and I don't think I should, because it just felt awful. And after a certain point, I realized I didn't want to be their friend. And I took a stand and ended those friendships. And it felt selfishly sucky, because why wouldn't you want to keep those friendships? But at the same time, holding those separate things at the same time was not helpful, and it was not benefiting anyone. In fact, it created a system where that person could continue to be an asshole because they weren't getting repercussions for it in their real life. And that's kind of the end place where I came when it came to Mormonism. That I had volunteered with, and even like gone to, like, does your Mormon church do trunk or treat?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, and there are like so many community activities, you know, the different, like, were there like ward parties that you would go to? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. No, exactly. Well, and I guess the thing is, because I don't pay tithing, and so therefore, I'm not eligible to go to the temple. And I mean, while I love the temple. I mean, I know that sounds odd for people, but I happen to love the ritual, because I don't look at it as, I look at it as ritual. And
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people I know that actually was not freaked out the first time I went to the temple.
Well, I mean, it's so divorced from the rest of the world that it kind of.
It absolutely is. But I grew up reading fantasy and high ritual literature, and so to me that was all it was just high ritual.
I get that. Yeah. No.
And I know that, I mean, I just happen to be glancing through chat here, and I mean, the reason I'm still active is not because I care anything about the church as a whole. It's because it's my community, it's my people.
Yeah.
I mean, Mormonism is my heritage, and so I am fourth generation on all sides.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean, my grandfather was was good friends with one of the apostles of the church, the church, and so it's not just it's never been just a belief to me. It's been
a cultural thing. Yeah.
It is, and so
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just that I realized that the culture that the church was becoming. I mean, I didn't realize that I was raised so differently in the church than so many of my friends until about 10 years ago, when I started to really talk to people about it.
Yeah.
Because I was raised that it was okay to have doubts. I was raised that it was okay to
really.
To criticize the leaders. I mean, my parents were always absolutely orthoprax as far as you could go. I mean, we didn't have playing cards in our house. We never had any colas in our house because of the caffeine. I mean, we were very, very strict orthoprax. But when we would be watching General Conference and listening to the leaders of the church speak, my dad would be over there and he'd say, "Well, I don't know about that," when they'd say something.
Oh, that is so interesting. I wonder if it is. I wonder if it's because you can trace your roots so far back. Like when you say trace those roots, do you mean like back to Nauvoo, or back to like Joseph Smith?
Well, okay,
I'm sorry. I know like 90% of the people watching are like, "What the fuck are they?" But I need to know now.
I know. So my great grandfather. So it's not even that far back. My grandfather was born in 1893, and his father was born in 1825, and his father, so that's my great grandfather, was Brigham Young's nephew.
Oh shit. Yeah.
So we're not even talking that many generations as far as that line.
Oh my God. Okay. So like, how did your family deal with the FLDS split and like all of the other splits? There are a lot of splits.
There
Oh.
are, and I've had family members, like one of my father's sisters and her husband. They felt that the church, back in the '90s, they thought that the leadership of the church had gone astray, and they left the
Mhm.
church to join a polygamist cult.
I mean, I like at the time I wouldn't necessarily consider it as a cult, as just that fundamentalist like section of it. Okay, so I have to another question. You're in Missouri. Were you related
Yes.
to the Missouri like Jackson County group?
Yes.
Ah, really?
One of my ancestors is Amanda Barnes Smith, who I don't know if you've ever heard that name before, but she's very prominent in the. Her husband and the son was killed at Hans Mill, the Hans Mill massacre.
Hmm.
She was Amanda Barnes. Was I've forgotten the exact, but no, she's very prominent in the early LDS Church.
Yeah.
My great grandfather on my mother's side was personally taught by Joseph Smith, and moved to Nauvoo, and yeah. So my roots go way back.
I if as a non-Mormon, can you tell I kind of have done like a little bit of
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
that is wild. That is wild. I'm so Trent, I'm glad you're here. And I have to wonder if it's because of kind of having that familial history that has caused you to have such a different experience from so many people, because the Mormons that I went to high school with and got to know after high school, definitely grew up in an environment that was not okay with that kind of thing.
Oh, and I totally get that now. Like, it took me years as an adult to look around at the other members of the church around me and say, what are you guys not getting? Because I wasn't really learning what their stories were and what their background was. And then about 10 years ago, I started to question a whole bunch of things about my beliefs. And boy,
Yeah.
I tell you, I've changed in so many ways in the last. I mean, moving to Missouri was one of the best things for me with regards to that, because I really started to examine everything in my life. And that's when I started to understand what is epistemology.
Yeah.
How do I know the things that I do? Because I've always been so confident in my beliefs.
I mean, in believing communities, it is viewed as a really good thing to have just, absolute confidence in something. You were more believable and more trustworthy if you were never wrong and you had absolute confidence, which, as a non-believer now, I'm just like, wow, that was crazy. But yeah, okay. So I'm sorry for digressing. That's just really interesting. Trent, I'd love to just talk to you at some point, but I know I kind of want to get back to what you had called in about. Trying to bring us back here so more people can follow. Before I do though, I do want to say, I don't have other callers on the line, so I'm just going to give our phone number one more plug so that we can try and get some more people queued up after you, okay? So let me just say that if you want to call, 412-753-7436. That's 412-SKEPGEN or tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Would love to talk to you. In the meantime, Trent. Okay. So the benefit of believing something, even if it's not true, and then acting as it is, I personally think that you can't choose your beliefs. Your beliefs.
Well, that's why I'm not sure that belief is really the right word there, because I agree with that, but I'm not sure what other word to use.
I think that utilizing tools that are useful, utilize them so long as they are useful. I have found that for most non-believers, eventually that stuff stops feeling as useful. And if that's the case, then I advise that you find other ways to keep doing that kind of thing. There are lots of atheists I know who really benefit from meditation and different types of meditation. When it comes to atheist witches, doing spell work is just a kind of meditation from what I've seen.
Right.
When I've talked to atheopagans, picking a deity that kind of aligns with what you're feeling or what you want, and using that kind of prayer as a way to, focus yourself in on something that you want, or to help yourself, resolve, upsets or fears or traumas. Like, all of those things are us just figuring out how to hack our brains. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess that's, so, and I'm not thinking about it so much for myself as to how to, it's like if I never went back to church again, it's like, yeah, I'd still interact with the people that I like there. I go each week. One, it's an opportunity. I play the organ. It's an opportunity for me to do that. It's an opportunity for me to serve the people there, and I participate to the level that I want to participate, to serve it like I want to, and
playing the organ.
I don't.
So you could win the rub your belly, pat your head competition.
I'm becoming an organist. Let's put it that way. I'm
okay.
That turned into an organist, and I'm getting. I don't feel like I'm quite there yet where I can call myself an organist, but I'm definitely further along than most people that play the organ in church for Mormons.
Okay. I got you. And that's in your
I've got good friends of mine that are professional organists that play for churches that actually pay their musicians. And so I also happen to have, it's just as a little aside to blow your mind a little bit more, I happen to I sang with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir for 8 years.
Ooh, oh, they sound so pretty.
And I loved doing that. That was very there were some really amazing experiences I had doing that. Some that at the time I called spiritual, the spirit, and now I just recognize them as still amazing, and that's kind of how I reinterpreted spiritual. To me, I do feel like there is some power in connection and community. In fact, that's been the biggest change in my life, is the switch from individualist to recognizing that I'm part of a community, and my individual, while the individual is important, the community, I think, is there needs to be a balance there.
Yeah. So Trent, I love the way that you're emoting. You are coming in a little quiet. I have the exact same problem. So just so you know, I it was something that was taught to me when I first started. It's your dynamic range, that you're loudest and you're quietest. Just just so you know, people probably had to turn the volume up on that one a little bit.
I appreciate that feedback.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to promote myself, but I am trying to start a YouTube channel to talk about some of these issues.
Really?
But I am.
Hey, Trent, when you get it started, you give me a shout, and if there's anything I can do to help, if you want to guest.
Honestly, I was planning on giving you a call to find out what kinds of things I might need, because I do think I have an interesting perspective on it. It's not going to be focused strictly on atheism, but that's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
It is a factor in my life.
Have you reached out to Bryce Blankenhagel or any of the Mormon?
The only other Mormon that I'm not aware of. I honestly don't watch a lot of ex-Mormon streams because I don't relate to their experiences.
So I just for pure fun, thank God I'm atheist, is 2 ex-Mormons living in Salt Lake City who are just hilarious, who I've listened to since before I hope they're still around, who I listened to since before I ever did stuff on my own. There's also Naked Mormonism, and Naked Mormonism actually goes into like the history and how Mormonism actually happened by going into real deep stuff. Okay, so yeah, you've checked that out.
See, that's part of the thing, is that I've been fully aware of most of the problems of the church, again, because have such a long history. None of that's a surprise. I mean, sure, maybe I didn't maybe know all of the details, but it didn't surprise. Most of the things didn't surprise me.
That is amazing. So Trent, hop on Discord. I'm going to be doing an after show, and I would love to talk to you in the Discord. The link to the Discord is in the description for this video, and also I know our amazing moderators will also pop the link. So definitely hop into the Discord, and I'll talk to you more about it afterward. I'd be happy to help you in any way I can.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to necessarily get into that, but it sounds like I might want to even reach, because there were, like I said, there were some things that were in that paleo or not paleo. That's a whole different that atheo-pagan episode that were really intriguing to me about the picking a
Well, actually,
a deity whose things you idolize or not idealize, not idolize.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, idealize is the right word. Actually, I have an atheist witch in the screening room who I'm going to be picking up and probably picking up that conversation with. So, I know there are a lot of things we wanted to talk about, but we've already gone for over a half hour.
We have. I'm glad you've got other callers now. So.
Thank you. You saved my butt. I really appreciate it. But Trent, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this call, and I look forward to talking to you later.
All right. It's good to talk to you, Eric.
You too.
Love the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the work that you do.
Oh, thanks.
Take care, Trent.
Okay.
Oh, what a sweetheart. And for everybody else, I would love to see you in our Discord as well. I've been doing after shows after every episode. Unless I'm feeling really sick or something, I really enjoy kind of doing a debrief and a hangout with people. Link is in the description. And yeah, I'd love to catch you there. In the meantime, oh my goodness, I have so many people. I love this. But I got to talk to
thank you,
Ashley in Minnesota. Ashley, you are on Skeptic Generation.
Hey, Eric.
Hey,
how's it going?
I'm doing really well. Let me just get you dialed in here in the in the lower third. Meantime, what did you want to talk about?
First off, I'd like to shout out your partner V for successfully helping me along my transition.
Yay!
And showing good non-binary characters and like exploring that option. Huge shout outs to them. They are amazing.
They are, aren't they? I love them very much. Yeah. So good. So it says you want to talk about paganism. Is this another atheo-paganism thing?
Yes. Well, kind of.
Okay, hit me.
So I'm a member of the Satanic Temple.
Cheers.
And I practice ritual and like candle carving and tarot cards and so forth. But what I worry about is perhaps overstepping boundaries into like shamanistic practices or the practices of indigenous people or like Celtic cultures or cultures from Hinduism or things like that. And I'm worried that it is ethically dubious for a white passing person to take indigenous practices and rituals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the cringiest call, one of the cringiest calls I ever had, somebody called in and said that their wife was an Indian princess in another life.
Fucking Christ.
And I was like, okay, number one, you're talking about First Nations people. They're not Indian. And number two,
correct.
Princesses are a thing that was brought over from Europe. Like that whole hierarchy.
Yeah.
It was
the pinnacle of whiteness cannot be
Yeah,
ascribed
but also
to
needing
First
to,
Nations people.
yeah, and then needing to assert yourself as like genetically being superior is just so cringe. I I get it when it comes to appropriation, and honestly, I think that I would reach out to the people who you're wanting to like be involved with those kinds of practices and talk to them, find out what they're comfortable with, and how you can be involved, and take your lead from there, because I definitely would see my boundaries as different from what theirs are. And so reaching out and connecting with those people, I think would be the right thing to do. And then also,
Right.
it sounds like you're approaching it with a level of humility that I would really like. That's what I would want most, you know? So yeah, that's kind of my first take on it.
Yes. There are many Indigenous persons in Minnesota. I can't for the life of me remember what the name of it was, but there's like a map of all of the First Nations peoples who were colonized, and I can't remember the name of the specific Indigenous peoples that were taken over where I live, and for that I deeply apologize.
No,
but the issue I'm running into is a lot of, like, being in Minnesota, most everyone that I interact with on a daily basis is not Indigenous or First Nations.
Right.
And a lot of the practitioners around are your run-of-the-mill MLM peddling crystal woo-woo people who are like, no, this is for healing, and these are like like there's a local bead shop, and it's like, oh, well, this is Indian sage, and it's like, no, shut up.
No.
So I don't know where I would find people. I suppose I should just do more research into it, because
definitely do, and you may be really, really benefited from that research. I know that when I got involved with some Native groups where I grew up in Southern California, it was through a friend who was one of the whitest people I know, who started showing up and was invited to a sweat lodge, and started like getting involved with ceremonies, and was invited, and they were just absolutely embraced because they listened and just wanted to be involved. And so, yeah, definitely look into it and let me know how it goes. But as far as like non-First Nations people's, even in the comments, people are like, Celtic stuff. If that's something you want to check out too, just beware of the weird alt-right pipeline that exists in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I have heard the term. I've heard the term snow tap, and that's something to look out for. Okay. Google it. You'll see. It's cringy, but at the same time, like, I just want you to find those things that are gonna benefit you and in your well-being. And if taking part in different rituals and things like that are fulfilling and satisfying to you in the ways that you need it to be, and you're not putting people out, and you're understanding what benefit it has for you, then all the power to you. I'm definitely supportive of it.
I guess maybe calling in to you specifically wouldn't have. I should have known better, as you're of Hispanic descent. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my when it comes to my indigenous heritage, it's Aztec. So I have Aztecan roots.
Very cool.
I know, right? It's funny because it's like I know I have a whole lot more, but the most direct link is my grandmother's side, and I feel so disconnected from it that I haven't wanted to like express myself as a part of that because it's not a community that I, there are not communities that I've grown up in that have like kept a lot of any of that, and so really my only way of connecting has been food, and I've been really enjoying that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I hope things go well for you, Ashley, and I'm really glad that you called in. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping to turn this into a more like vampy thing as you were waiting for calls.
No, you honestly, between you and the last caller, I've got some more callers who came in, and this was perfect. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you for looking out.
I've done good.
You did. You did. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay tuned. Thank you for watching the show.
Yeah. We'll talk at you later. Thank you so much, Eric, for everything you do for the Skeptic community. And shout outs to V again, because they are awesome.
They are awesome.
When you see them next, give them an extra big hug from all of the people they have helped.
I absolutely will.
Appreciate you.
I'll be seeing them right after the show. I'm just going to go back upstairs and probably make us breakfast. So will do.
Heck yeah. Alrighty. You have a wonderful rest of your day, all right?
You too. Take care, Ashley.
Bye-bye.
What a sweetheart. People in the comments, I saw Theo Fungi had a comment that really kind of stood out for me. Said, if a placebo helps someone relax, that's not much of a problem. It's when they cure that's lethal, or can be lethal. I would amend. And yeah, placebos are interesting. I have had long conversations with V about placebos, and I don't know if I'm necessarily fully comfortable with the conclusions that I've come to when it comes to that kind of thing. So I will be shifting my views, and you'll probably see that on air over time. In the meantime, though, I have Sarah in Washington.
Hey.
Hi, Sarah. You are an ex-Mormon who saw a ghost?
Yeah, I was like thinking I had two things I could talk about.
Okay.
You know me a little bit. We've talked before about this and, over Google calls and stuff, but I was Mormon for 20 years, and I have in Why I Left story. Also, when I was a kid, I saw a ghost, and I'm still not sure what I believe in as far as that goes. I have no reason to think that ghosts are real.
Mm-hmm.
So which one you ever want to talk about? We can talk about that.
Oh, I tend to find that on atheist shows, Why I Left conversations are not as interesting for viewers, and so
that's fair.
Yeah, so I'm definitely more interested in the ghost story, because as a non-believer at this point, what is it that you are wondering about? Like, can you give me like a short kind of synopsis, and then maybe we can interact with that idea?
When I was very young, I lived in an old shack. This is all leading up to this. That was on sacred Indian hunting grounds. Luckily, not burial grounds that we're aware of. We had a lot of events occur there. Things like doors opening on their own. It was also a shack too. There were literally holes in the kitchen floor snakes would come up out of. That was this being, the late 80s, and we didn't have a lot of contact or the internet. We just kind of had ourselves to rely on for these kind of things. My mom had visions and dreams there. She saw some stuff. I could tell you more about that. But one in particular night, I was feeling kind of scared. I was awake. I was maybe like 4 or 5 years old. This was middle of the night. And a man, in my mind's eye, as I would say it, dressed in full Southern Confederate Army garb, as I now recognize it, because I didn't know what it was then. That's what gets me. Came to my bedside, climbed up and hid in the top of my closet, and as he was looking down at me, puts his finger up to his lips and goes, "Hush," and says something like, "I'll protect you." And that same night, my mom heard what she thought was something demonic or something like with heavy footsteps and chains walking past her, and she had some pretty adverse experience that night too. I could ask her more in detail about her side of it, but what I remember most is exactly what this guy looked like, which was so weird.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what are your thoughts on that?
absolutely. So I have my own ghost stories, and it's a number of things. The first is kind of the simple explanations of us as humans seeing things. Do you know what pareidolia is?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, kind of looking up into the clouds and seeing shapes, and going, oh, that's a bunny rabbit. Oh, that's a face, right? And I think humans are hardwired to find faces in the noise, to find any kinds of patterns where there may not be patterns, because from an evolutionary standpoint, we're benefited by doing that. And when it comes to stories of, our childhood, I think, well, first off, I know that the science is in, the data is in, that every time we interact with a memory, we change that memory. It's just the way our brains work. When you remember something, you are accessing it in a way that is pliable. And the more you access it, the more things change. It's kind of the source of, when people talk about fish stories, and that fish getting bigger and bigger every time. It's not necessarily because the person telling the story is wanting it to be more fantastic, but because every time they interacted with that memory, it slightly changed. And I remember personally having a ghost story and thinking I saw an old woman and all kinds of stuff, and realizing that early versions of that story were less detailed. And right. Yeah. And I wasn't remembering more. I was adding more. And I was finding ways for it to make sense by adding in things. And it's the exact same way that our brains are working all of the time. You're only taking in so much information. Your brain is just kind of filling in the rest. And when it comes to repeating those stories, I think that by no fault of your own, like most people, I think that would more likely be an implanted memory. Not saying that there wasn't a source of it, but that there could be something with a naturalistic explanation that has grown over time, especially when you get more and more people involved. There was a mini documentary that I had seen years ago, where there were people who wanted to study exorcisms, who went to, I don't even remember what country it was, but they wanted to go see kind of how other tribes were treating kind of this phenomena that was like exorcism. And they went and filmed this, and then on the plane they were talking about it, and when they got back they're like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it, this person floated in the air, and there were all of these like supernatural things that were happening, and they all had this amazing description of the event. And then when they went back to the tape, that's not what happened. Over the course of like a week or two, they had collaboratively built up what had happened into this massive supernatural event. And I don't think any of them are lying. I don't think any of them have necessarily bad memories or dumb in any way. In fact, it's just how our brains work. And so my explanation for stuff like that is I guess I more readily accept the idea that it's something that we construct over time, especially when it comes to our childhoods, that builds into the things like that.
Right. The only thing that I still can't get over in my head is just how detailed I remember it as it was then. And maybe I am adding some ideas. I'm not entirely sure, but I still remember the face, and I still remember the hat and the top of the uniform, which really stood out to me. And my mom still holds this over me. She's what I call a buffet believer. She just picks and chooses what she likes.
Yeah.
She picks and chooses what she likes out of Mormonism and doesn't actually go. But so she still holds that over me, going, but you saw this ghost, and I'm thinking, did I really? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, because she probably has had a lot of influence in the way that memory is formed for you. And by the way, in my church, we call them cafeteria Christians. So I'm like, I get it. Picking and choosing. Yeah.
She's a buffet believer, cafeteria Christian. Well, see, that's the thing, though. She was Mormon, so not technically all Christian, right?
Well, if you're asking a Mormon, they believe themselves to be Christians.
Oh, yeah, we did. We definitely did.
Yeah,
I just believe in Jesus 2.0.
It's funny. When people bring that up, if you tell me you're a Christian, fine. I am so not in the business of adjudicating who gets to call themselves that. So sure, why not? They're Christians. Okay, cool. But yeah, I think the thing I would walk away with is this wish that I could go back in time and talk to 5-year-old Sarah and see how 5-year-old Sarah would have described the event and whether or not that much detail was there then and how much detail has been added since then. Yeah. Because I like at the core of it, even if it happened yesterday, ultimately, when it comes to an unexplained event, it's exactly what it is, unexplained. And something like that happening, it's not necessarily evidence of supernatural anything, but it could be any number of things that I'd love to explore. I just wish we could,
What would you say to a believer who thinks that I'm just putting blinders on now that I don't believe? That I'm just like, I'm putting on blinders. So now, because now that I'm out of the church and stuff, I've been out now like that about 10 years or so, and I don't believe in much of that stuff. I'm not seeing it really happen at all. I mean, I'm not having cabinet doors shut. I'm not having coffee mugs being thrown out or whatever. And so she's saying that, that the influence are there, but they're just not able to affect me because I refuse to see it. So what would you say to somebody who says you put on blinders, you're just not seeing it?
Well, so that is a really interesting accusation, because part of the reason why, people who really love that kind of stuff see it all the time is because when you're tuned into it, you look for stuff that can fit that explanation and you start collecting them. The same has been true for, if you have, like, let's say you're shopping for a car and you're really, really wanting to buy a Subaru Outback. You're like, that's the car I'm going to buy. For the next few weeks, you're going to see nothing but Subaru Outbacks on the road. Not necessarily because there's been an increase, but because you are now tuned into it and you are going to see them and remember them everywhere you go. And those kinds of things are going to be how you picking that kind of stuff out. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Also numbers, certain, random assortments of numbers. People go, oh, wow, this number has followed me all my life. Well, no, you've been around numbers all the time. You just remember all the times that one thing happened because you're tuned into it. It's just kind of how our brains work. But ultimately, when it comes to that, what kind of fucking weak sauce demons are there that, if you don't want to pay attention to them, then damn it, they just can't haunt you anymore. Oh no. Like, at that point, you'd have to say that whatever, spirits those were, they're pretty pathetic. Usually when it comes to true things about the world, they're true whether you like it or not. And if the case is that, you being haunted depends on whether or not you are open to being haunted. I mean, I wouldn't tell your mom it this way, but that sounds real stupid. It does. And that isn't to say that, like, God, even now,
she's a very intelligent person. She's very emotionally intelligent.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily that you are not your ideas. I have so many different stupid things about things that I believe. It has nothing to do with the person at all, because I have the power to grow and learn, but I've had some really, really wonky ideas, so definitely in no way reflects on her. It's just that
Yeah.
that is a really silly thing to believe. But yeah, no, there's so many ways to go with it, and I wish that we had the time to dive into it. But
Is there like an email address to the show or something like that?
there is, it's contact skepticgeneration@gmail.com. But
Contact Skeptic Generation. Okay.
I'll tell you right now though, Sarah,
Yeah.
it's just me.
Okay.
And I'm currently looking for work. I'm doing contract work, and like this is just my side thing. And so my ability to respond to stuff is real bad right now.
Real limited. That's okay.
Yeah, but I do advise that you check out the Discord and check out the comments, because there's an amazing community here that would probably love to engage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Sarah.
I was going to say though before I go,
Yeah.
you reminded me of a Whitest Kids You Know sketch. Have you heard of them?
Oh yeah, the Canadian improv group, right?
Canadian? No. They were like, they won a contest out of
Oh.
Colorado, and Trevor Moore, rest in peace, late Trevor Moore.
I think
he
I was
from Virginia.
okay.
So
I think I was thinking of Kids in the Hall.
That's what you're thinking of. Yes, it's just like Kids in the Hall.
Okay.
There's Demon Ouija board sketch. Look it up.
Will do.
He was like, I'm a demon. I wish demons had the ability to cut. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's these teenage 13-year-old girls, well, grown men dressed as teenage 13-year-old girls.
Of course.
And they're asking, Spirit, is Bobby going to ask me out and have like 22 kids?
Oh no.
And he's just he's just on Ouija board duty. It's hilarious.
I will absolutely check it out. Maybe I'll watch it with the people in the after show on Discord. I'll definitely check it out. Sarah, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, you're right. Demons don't have any powers.
No.
Thank you.
All of this in response to something being demonic. The idea that something is demonic, and you can have that entire conversation without ever having to say, oh, well, I don't believe in demons, because that, just going into what possible explanations people have, it can be sufficient. I know that there are other ways to have that conversation, but I felt that was the right way to have that conversation for sure. We've got a couple more callers that I would love to take. Let's move on to Chelsea in North Carolina. Chelsea, you are live on Skeptic Generation.
That I am. How are you?
I am good. Let me turn down your volume. You were coming in loud and clear. I want to make sure that we are even. What did you want to talk about today?
Sorry. It happens every time. Like I know what I want to talk about, and then I get so excited, and it just
no worries.
stops right at my mouth.
That's okay. Let me help. It says
being autistic, I guess.
That's okay.
I hate it. Anyway,
it says.
How do you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna kick it off.
Make it faster.
No worry. It says in the notes that you want to talk about what's the best way to meet people where they're at and have productive conversations. Does that sound about right?
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah. What set this off?
Nothing really set it off. I just thought it'd be a good conversation for the show, honestly.
I appreciate that.
We're me and you we're talking right now, and we're the subject is how do we best talk to people, not to necessarily change their mind, but just reach them where they're at.
Yeah. So.
Does that make sense?
It does, and it really depends on your relationship with those people. So are you talking more about strangers and wanting to find places to have those conversations, or are you talking about strategies for talking to friends, family, loved ones, coworkers, or what's the context around this?
Really, it's anyone. So are you saying, since you're saying either or, do you mean, I'm just asking for your perspective, do you mean if it's either or, this and that, does it differ between how you talk to them?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I think the first would be, the people who are closest to me, right? My close family members and things like that. When I really started that whole deconversion process, and once I realized I'm an atheist and I was watching atheist shows, I wanted to talk to believers because I wanted to kind of reenact the kinds of conversations that I was seeing online. You know, at the time I was watching a lot of Matt Dillahunty, and I wanted to have my own Matt Dillahunty moment, even if that came at the expense of my family members, you know, who were going to get slammed and owned. And he doesn't even use that language, but the fans do. Yeah, I think
I don't
that
like it myself.
no,
I don't.
but for a lot of people who leave their religion, you know, at least for me, I was really angry, and it was really satisfying to me.
I can see where it'd be there's utility in getting out your anger, but
Yeah.
is it productive is the question.
Well, at the time I wasn't thinking about that, but I will tell you that when you want to have those kinds of conversations that are aggressive, families maybe not the people to have those conversations with, you know, because there's a cost benefit analysis to, you know, how important that is to you and how important those relationships are to you. And, you know, what kind of, you know, things are you doing to have a positive relationship with the people that you love, and what are the benefits and the costs? So that is a different thing, right? And that is not taken into account when you're talking to a stranger, right? There are street epistemologists. If you check out Anthony Magnabosco or the many, many street epistemologists on YouTube who are amazing, they have a full methodology that they've used to set up and be able to initiate, not initiate, instigate, I think is the word, these conversations with strangers.
No, I'm not good with words anymore.
No worries. It's not instantiate. I think it's instigate. But either way, to start these conversations with believers about what they believe and why. And there's a whole kind of structure around those questions and how to interact with it that I think is, I feel like it's a lot nicer of a way to start those conversations with strangers, because strangers don't necessarily want to have those conversations with you. And so confronting random people on the street can make you an asshole if you're not careful. And I feel like
I got a story about that.
About being an asshole on the street?
Mind. Not an asshole necessarily, just angering someone with just being calm and collective and just having a polite conversation, but yet they would get angry.
Yeah,
what I was saying, because they're so opposed to what I was saying that it just infuriated them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel completely opposite of what they felt. Here, let me just tell the story. Is that all right?
As long as it's not so, like a really long one, because I tend to lose people who are viewing if they're long stories. But if it helps contextualize what we're talking about, then sure.
Yeah, it helps, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible.
Okay.
I can go on tangents, so just if I ever, tangent. Just
as an experienced host,
please.
I'll rein you in. I promise. Go for it.
Okay. So I was at my friend's workplace one day, and I was just there to visit, chat with him. He said I could do that, so I could just visit him and talk. However, while I was waiting to talk to him, he was helping another customer in the back. And when that customer had a husband, I was talking to her husband and this other random dude. Strangers. They're strangers. They're both strangers to me.
Okay.
I don't know them.
Yep. Moving on.
And the subject matter was, let's just say, I can't remember exact subject matter, but it was something about police.
Okay.
And by the end of the conversation, the husband left before, because let's just say this: the husband left before the conversation ended, and I think the husband embarrassed himself and the other guy that I was talking to, because the other guy, he shook my hand afterward. He appreciated my calm demeanor, even though he disagreed. Yeah,
and I, being able to approach things like that is admirable, and it's not always necessarily achievable. Having those specific conversations, I have found there are groups of people, both in religious and non-religious communities, who are dying to have those dialogues. And I know that recently I had Elliot, Secular Rarity, on as a guest, who you're in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I believe Elliot's in Tennessee, but there are groups, especially throughout the South, where believers and non-believers will get together and talk. If I were you, I'd look up like the Bible and Beer Consortium, or other.
That's in North Carolina?
I'm sorry?
That's in North Carolina?
So it was all over the place. It was in Texas and numerous places throughout the South.
Okay.
There are definitely some really, really cool places to be. And I know that there are some churches that really, really enjoy having non-believers to come in and talk that kind of stuff out. If I were you, I think that to scratch that itch, see if you can find local community things where you can do that in person. And, find those people.
I already have.
See, there you go. It sounds like you're doing fine then.
Yeah, and believe it or not, it's a freaking church. I have not been to church in a long time. Well, that's a kind of a fib right there. I haven't been to my old church in a long time. Like, ever since I got new family, chosen family, I've been going to their church. I'm still not a believer. I just go there for community as well as just to listen, and maybe I might jump in for my own 2 cents, and they don't mind that either. They like dialogue. They don't push me away. Like, they don't shut me down. Sit down, shut up. Your opinion doesn't matter. They don't do that.
That's a lot better than my church.
What to say. Yeah. And I appreciate that.
Hey.
I feel completely welcome there.
I'm glad.
And Mom is a pastor there, so that's probably why.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah.
I do you know how often I talk to PKs, pastor kids, who don't have a relationship with their family anymore? The fact that you have a chosen family that loves you, supports you, and has brought you in, even though, like, that's beautiful. See, if we lived in a world where more people were like that, I wouldn't do this show.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, but I'm happy to hear that that's the case for other people. Chelsea, thank you for calling in, and when it comes to that, I think you have found a best way to meet people where they're at.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah, sounds like you're doing great.
And you're doing great too. So don't. I don't want to hear you say I'm not doing that great. Like, with like conversation stuff, because you are. You're doing good work out there.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I like your takes. Like, not just like it's calm demeanor. I like calm demeanor over just being rash and all that.
Me too. I know that it's not as like exciting.
It's not as exciting.
It's not
sorry,
as.
I'm talking over you.
No, that's okay. It's not as clippable. But you know what? It's something I love to do, and I think that it's something that we need to have good examples of, and so I'm happy to do it. Chelsea, I'm going to move on to the next caller, but thank you for calling in. It was nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. We have a related call next, and I kind of just want to roll into this. We have Pete in California who wants to discuss tactics in converting/deconverting people from ideologies and how sometimes atheists talk past their audiences. Oh boy, Pete. Some atheists, a lot of atheists. Oh my, I think
you know.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you're pretty good, Eric.
I can be a bit of a prick.
I mean, sometimes that's got to be there in the old toolbox, as somebody recently stated.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I was just wondering, I listen to a bunch of these, and there's a bunch of people who call that could be flipped easily, and they don't get flipped.
I disagree.
And that's kind of depressing a little bit, but
why?
And then there's all the other things too about talking past one another, and sometimes some hosts will speak on such a higher plane that there's no way your caller even understands a third of what the host is saying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
That's not very productive.
not necessarily. There are places for it. I personally put it in the category of navel gazing, and I love navel gazing. It is fun to get real deep into the arcane, pieces of some philosophies. But I agree, and at the same time, I don't think that necessarily most people can be flipped the way you're saying it. When you say flipped, in my mind,
Right.
it sounds like you're saying flipped from believer to non-believer. Is that what you're saying?
A change of mind.
Really?
A change of mind.
I highly doubt that. Why? What makes you think that that's the case?
Because I've done it 100 million times. There's, I'm from Modesto here, and if there's people listening from Modesto, they know me. And I mean, religiously, I went to church here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And not any longer, but I've been able to talk to people and get them to see a different point of view.
Okay.
And it's not hard, and this is the thing. I mean, this is why I was asking about the mission statement, because it's not always about the facts. A lot of times it's just about the hearts and minds of the people you're talking to, and when you can recognize the wheel spinning and who you're talking to, it's not hard.
Well, it depends. I mean, when I hear that someone has flipped their opinions over and over and over again, my question for them...
That's bad.
Yeah, my question for them is how are they grounding their understanding of the world? What is their epistemic justification for the things that they believe? And whether we come to the same conclusion or not, I want to help them have better reasons for believing the things that they believe. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, and that comes with a lot of reflection, investigation, and reapproaching the same issue over and over again for most people until they can kind of wrap their head around the difference.
There's a depressing aspect to that.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat of an engineer and inventor.
Okay.
And I have invented so many things just to find out that some prick already did it, that it makes me angry. So when I hear all these arguments, if somebody hits me with what's an evolutionary bullshit about how they think that makes their religion true, I've already got Aaron Ra. You've got the young doctor with the foof on his head. What's his name?
Student Dr. Ben?
I wish I didn't have to relearn everything every morning. What's that?
Student Dr. Ben?
I've seen him too. No, Valkyrie?
Forrest Valkai.
Forrest, yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. No, these guys can shred these guys, and they have the answers. And to me, it's not worth my time to have to go out and relearn all that unless I was in the field, like they are. Like for instance,
well,
definitely in the field.
I mean, it really depends on what you call the field. I mean, most of us are lay people with normal day jobs.
In their case, medical and evolutionary field. Forrest is a doctor, isn't he?
I haven't interacted with Forrest very much, actually. I think that we were kind of ships passing in the night.
I think he's heading in that direction, maybe.
Yeah, I maybe I should check them out. I've heard a lot of really good things. But
all the things I'm sorry, I don't want to. But
no.
All the things that you were saying are absolutely correct and essential. But I'm just thinking an element. Not like I said. I think you're excellent. You talk to the people. You don't climb up their ass every time they get out of line in any way, shape, or form, and that's all good. And they feel like you're a heartfelt person that actually cares about them, and that's the most important thing right there.
Well, I try. I mean,
right.
To the best of my ability. The way that you're approaching it sounds kind of flippant. The idea that it can be done so easily.
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
Okay.
Okay, but because there's a hell of a lot more to it that's going to get crammed into a however long call this is.
I
mean, what you're saying, first off,
mm-hmm.
You got to know you're right. And the thing is that when I say that I do not have evidence for a God, and I most certainly don't have evidence enough that's going to make me sign up and and show up and do all that other stuff. I mean, there's definitely not enough evidence to believe in a God to give your life over to it.
While I agree, what do you mean by you got to know you're right?
You have to know, you have to come correct. In other words, you know, if you're going to say that evolution is correct, know that evolution is correct and have the facts. And you have that.
I think it really depends, because I've found myself having the most beneficial conversations when I don't know. You know, and I'm clear, and I'm well, I mean, really, honestly, I think that if you don't know, then that is the best time to explore as much as you can to learn. And that's part of why I want to talk about it, is because if I don't know a thing, I want us to be able to have conversations that are uncomfortable, and they can be really uncomfortable when we don't fully know. And I think that being open to changing your mind, you know, slowly over time, or just bouncing ideas off each other and using each other as you know, a spring. Thank you. That's the word I was trying to find. Yes. You know, to bounce those ideas off of is incredibly important. If you only have conversations that you absolutely know you're right on, it feels like a really boring place to be, because you're only setting yourself up to have conversations that you already know the answer to. I love conversations that I don't know.
When I walk into a room and there's people having conversations, I go to the group that they're talking about what I don't know.
See, there you go. Then, well,
see,
then
that's true. Everything that you said is absolutely correct, and I agree. And it's got to be in there too.
Yeah.
Just everything comes together, you know, and the person that you're going to talk to isn't always going to be the person you're trying to convert.
Well, and you're not necessarily always wanting to try and convert anybody. That kind of goes to like a, you know, the Great Commission ideology. I'm not necessarily wanting to convert anybody. What I do want is for people to have good reasons to believe the things that they believe. And if I have my spin on it, it's to exemplify compassion, empathy, and patience whenever it's appropriate, because those are what I want people to use when they have that conversation with their family. And if they haven't seen it happen, then hopefully they can see it here and maybe have an idea of the way that they want to do that in their own lives. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about specifically on this call?
It negates my advice I was going to give you, but you know.
What's against the advice?
Oh, it negates the advice I was going to give you.
Oh.
Most of the people that call are not as educated and know as much as our hosts.
Pete, what education do you think I have?
May I ask a question to that question, sir?
Sure, why not? Go for it. I'm an open book.
What education do you think I have?
No idea. But I will tell you for myself.
Well, I made it to the 8th grade.
Cheers. I made it to 12th, and I didn't graduate.
Excellent.
I didn't graduate college.
So that's what I mean by that, is it doesn't really mean anything to me. You know, when I hear you, I hear an intelligent young man regardless of
appreciate you.
Educational.
But that,
I recognize people for who they are. I'm pretty good at it, and that's also one of the things that, you know, helps me.
Well,
to help people out of erroneous ideas.
Well, the statement you were making sounded like you were saying that most people are not as educated as the host, and I'm a host, and I'm just doing the best I can.
Nice. People are not that smart. I mean, overall, I mean,
Pete,
and they're great people. They're great people. I'm not trying to, but when it comes to what they understand, it's you know, sometimes it's so far over their head that I feel sorry. You know,
I don't know about that, Pete. I'm not that smart, and I'm not. I'm occasionally okay, people, but like, I don't know. I feel
Well,
like
if you're not that smart, will you quit saying smart things like I'm not that smart? Because that's one of the smartest things you can say.
I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that
Listen, you're an
my
intelligent young man wielding it in a perfect way.
I
You know, you're
appreciate
not
that.
overlording on anybody. You're not bull rushing anybody. That's intelligent.
I
You know,
I I feel
I'm not
like
trying to blow smoke up your ass at
no.
all. I swear to God,
Pete,
you know.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I just think that the way that I want to begin conversations is as charitable as possible. And so I want to assume
You
that
have
well, yeah. And so I want to assume that the person I'm talking to is as smart as can be. I don't want to ever make the assumption that somebody is otherwise, because I feel like that ends my ability to listen actively and have that conversation with them. So I don't know.
could not agree more. In fact, without the ability to recognize the level that the people around you are on, you cannot be. That's practically my call. That's the reason practically that I called, is because, you know, people get run over. They're not being recognized for who they are. They got to be recognized for who they are.
I agree.
And dealt with on that level. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Hey,
And when I see something, and I swear to God, Eric, there's been times I've watched these shows, and I do, and sometimes I'll just let them scroll without the sound on, just so that you guys get the credit for the video play.
Well, Pete,
And,
I sincerely appreciate that. But
yeah.
I think that we've kind of gone far afield in this call. We haven't really kind of dialed in on something. So next time you call, let's see if we can
do what we were trying to do. That's all.
No, I sincerely appreciate that.
Callers, I can understand you not, you know, because you do, in my opinion, a good job.
Well, thank you. I'm going to
be talking to the wrong guy, Eric.
Pete, you are just fine. I appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Well, you have a good day. There's
You
a
too.
lot more, but move on.
No worries. All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Take care, Pete. Yeah, in the comments, I know some people are saying, you know, where was this call going? Sometimes it be like that. But the best thing I can do as a host is try and find a through line and go from there. That was sweet of Pete, and it sounds like Pete is definitely as an example, utilizing me as a springboard for some ideas. And while I don't necessarily want this show to be a place for that all of the time, hopefully it was helpful. With that said, I think I'm going to start wrapping things up. I think we've been doing the show for over an hour and a half, and I do want to make myself some more coffee. I would really love to interact with people in the Discord. So check out the description for this video. You'll find the link to Discord, and we're going to go do an after show there. If you like what I do and you want to support me, I sincerely appreciate that. Go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration, where you can get your name added into the end credits. I'm still working out Patreon stuff, but any help really is sincerely appreciated. With that said, thank you so much to the amazing callers and incredible volunteers who help make the show possible. And yeah, I think that's about it. So with that said, do I have this ready? I think I have this ready. Until next week, I'm Eric Murphy, and I'm glad we've had this talk.